With Orange Man bad on his way back to the Oval Office, Hollywood is afraid, on the surface worried about retribution. Sebastian Stan of Marvel fame, and most recently of portraying Donald Trump in the Apprentice fame, is already feeling the consequences of taking on that particular role. But interestingly, he is feeling it from his peers in Hollywood. Because here's the kicker, it's not actually Trump that they're worried about. Then who, you might wonder? Let's find out. This video is sponsored by Bono. Outwardly, Hollywood is afraid of the vengeance of Donald Trump, who will be back in office before you know it. And then, what might he do to a Hollywood that fought him so fiercely? That's why the powers that be are afraid, though as we shall see, not necessarily of who you think. But even so, Sebastian Stan, who just portrayed Trump, is feeling the heat, as overnight, his peers in the industry went from praising him to, quite literally, not wanting to be seen in his company, for fear that they might be caught in the blast of the proverbial counter-strike. Not a very charitable reaction from a town that used to stand so united against Orange Man bad. And on the topic of charity, Bono revolutionizes charitable donations and makes it super easy to support the causes that you truly care about. It takes less than a minute to set up. All you have to do is list the causes that align with your values and that you want to support. State how much you want to donate per month. Times are rough for everybody, but you can start for as little as $5 per month. Then Bono will do the rest, up to and including selecting impactful and trustworthy charities. Bono is committed to transparency, so you can see the impact of your donation in weekly impact reports, where impact indicators show the difference that your donation has made. You can manage and update your donation plan in your giving profile, where you'll find your single yearly tax-deductible donation receipt for all the charities that you support. Perhaps most importantly, Bono also gives you the option to amplify your impact by bringing your friends, family, and wider circle through social media, and that's what I want to do now. As someone from a small country that for decades has been kept safe through international military treaties and the sacrifice of American soldiers, I want to give something back to veterans, because as it stands, 1/3 of all adults experiencing homelessness in the US are veterans. Upon learning how partisan FEMA was in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, I also want to contribute towards disaster aid and for everyone in need. And to that end, I also want to contribute towards ending hunger, as 1 in 8 children still worry where their next meal is going to come from. Join me, and the Midnight's Edge community can actually make a real-world difference, even outside of championing common sense in entertainment. Click the link in the description, or scan the QR code on screen right now and use my code MIDNIGHT to receive $5 towards your first donation with Bono, though that is for the first 50 people only, so sign up now. With that, let's get back to Hollywood's reaction, perhaps overreaction, as Sebastian Stan is finding out, to Trump being elected. Before we circle back to Sebastian Stan feeling the heat, let's begin with establishing that there's a lot of fear in Hollywood right now, though not necessarily of the boogeyman they have made Trump out to be. The fear is real though. We know this because industry trade Variety told us so right after the election in their article Hollywood on Edge after Trump's devastating victory. There's a lot of fear. This article read, on November 5th, Mark Ruffalo settled in to watch the election night returns, expecting Kamala Harris to beat Donald Trump. But as one swing state after another tilted to the former and now future president, Ruffalo started to think about what the next morning would bring for America. Going through my mind was just all the marginalized people that are going to be suffering from the unimaginable cruelty that's going to be unleashed. Ruffalo told Variety at the ACLU of Southern California's Bill of Rights Awards on Sunday, referencing what he thinks Trump's triumph means for women, immigrants, and the LGBTQ community. That was what was the most devastating, that we would let this happen. Don't fret, Mr. Ruffalo. You and your fellow cringe Avengers did your part in trying to prevent this from happening.
Kamala Harris, down with democracy.
Oh, yeah. I'm Kamala Harris, and I say, down with democracy.
Then again, out of touch, and as we have since learned, paid for cringe-worthy endorsements like these might very well have driven more voters away from Harris. But let's move on with the fear. Hollywood threw its collective weight behind Harris, organizing Zoom fundraisers, sharing social media messages of support, and stumping in battleground states. So her defeat was a shattering blow. And while Trump's first win in 2016 felt like a bolt from the blue, one that left the creative community eager to join the resistance, this time was different. In 2016, the reaction at the time felt like rage. People were motivated, inspired. They wanted to get up and get going, says one agency insider. In 2024, the reaction is much more somber and more resigned. Those were the words of an agency insider. That's the agents of the cast, the directors, the writers, and everyone else of note. The deal makers. The agents are resigned. Hold on to that thought, because it's going to get important later on here. On Saturday, the star-studded premiere of Universal's Wicked provided some distraction from the despair that enveloped the entertainment industry. Executives brought their kids, and famous fans of the musical escaped to Oz for the night. A couple days earlier, at the film's LA junket, starred Cynthia Erivo drew parallels between the fantastical story and the political moment. At the after-party, many people appeared to be drowning their sorrows in the night's custom cocktail, the Osmopolitan. A few women at the Wicked Bash even shared stories of cold-calling pharmacies in attempts to hoard birth control. They didn't seem to be joking. It would appear that the Wicked women bought the hoaxes hook, line and sinker, but what about the presumably wiser studio heads? Variety covered that as well. At the corporate level, some executives, such as Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, congratulated Trump on his comeback, while Warner Bros. Discovery chief David Zaslav predicted that the new administration would be more willing to rubber stamp future mergers. Yet there are concerns about how Trump, who has made no secret of his antipathy towards the media or desire to exact revenge, may respond if Hollywood is too critical. But, as I have said many times over, it's not really Trump that they're afraid of. No, they're afraid of you. Hollywood is afraid of the audience, because this election only served to confirm what the powers that be in Hollywood already knew deep inside, even if they refused to admit it until reality slammed them in the face this way. Hollywood is catastrophically out of touch with the movie-going audience. The audience is abandoning them. That's what they're really afraid of, and Variety confirms just that. If studios and streamers aren't worried about enraging a thin-skinned commander-in-chief, they may be concerned about alienating the majority of voters who handed him a decisive victory. In this election, Trump captured the popular vote for the first time. This might reset some of their thinking, there being the Hollywood studio chiefs, about the attitudes of the American people, actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt said at the Bill of Rights Awards. If you asked your average Hollywood executive, who do you think will win the popular vote in 2024, very few of them would have said Donald Trump. I don't expect Hollywood to really do much other than pursue commercial interests, and I imagine those commercial interests will be realigned by this revelation. This, then, is the real concern. Trump is a boogeyman that the Hollywood bubble dwellers used to scare themselves and each others with. But among the competitive adults inside of the Hollywood bubble, the agents and the studio heads, what they're really afraid of is the audience walking out on them, even more than they already have. As we saw a few videos ago, and this is why I brought up that clip, Grace Randolph was the early bellwether of this realization.
Because, people have said, you're in an echo chamber. We hear that all the time. And everyone's like, you're in an echo chamber. And now we're like, wait a minute, I think I might actually be in an echo chamber. I think that is very much the case. But here's where that's, I think, the most important. Sure, we're all in these bubbles. But how big are the bubbles? We had assumed that the Democratic progressive echo chamber was the bigger one. Oh, no, sir. I believe the conservative Republican echo chamber is bigger.
That right there is what this election made the competitive adults in the Hollywood bubble realize. That they really are in a bubble, one which is not reflective of the real world around it. And that realization is going to lead to change. Change that they will blame on their boogeyman Trump. But in reality, it's about getting back in good standing with the audience. Now that we have established that, let's get into this major realignment, and how it begins with pushing someone they suspect the audience of not taking too kindly to aside, namely the actor who portrayed Trump himself in the rather propagandistic The Apprentice, a movie of somewhat questionable historic accuracy and about which election interference accusations have been levied. This comes to us from Deadline Hollywood and their piece, Hollywood A-listers afraid of Donald Trump's wrath over The Apprentice, Sebastian Stan says. Of course, blaming Trump the boogeyman, but let's dig deeper, shall we? The article reads, Donald Trump never followed through on the threats to take The Apprentice to court. But star Sebastian Stan has experienced personal praise and a very public rebuffing from his fellow A-listers and their PR teams over the controversial biopic. The amount of love that I've received from some of the biggest, in terms of actors, directors, producers and writers, who have seen the movie and they rave about it, Stan said this week at an LA screening of the film. But then, for instance, I had an offer to do Variety Actors on Actors this Friday, and I couldn't find another actor to do it with me. Actors on Actors, of course, is this web series where actors talk to each other about their craft, approach to roles, and sometimes signal their virtue. It's generally of little interest to anyone outside of Hollywood in general and outside of the field of acting in particular, but for Hollywood actors, being on Variety's Actors on Actors is a big deal, and this is what Sebastian Stan was invited to. But in order for the show to work though, a minimum of 2 actors are required, and the problem was that despite the praise that was heaped upon Sebastian Stan for his role as Trump, the young sexual predator in The Apprentice, no one wanted to appear on screen next to him. The story continues. They were too afraid to go and talk about this movie, so I couldn't do it. The Emmy-nominated Pam and Tommy actor added with Apprentice director Ali Abbasi by his side. The reason why he is willing to be seen next to Sebastian Stan, of course, is that he already directed the movie, so he has nothing to lose by being seen next to him. That's not pointing at anyone specific, Stan went on to tell audience members. We couldn't get past the publicists or the people representing them because they were too afraid to talk about this movie. Jumping forward a bit, Variety confirmed the story. What Sebastian said is accurate, Variety co-editor Ramin Setoude told Deadline in a statement Wednesday. We invited him to participate in Actors on Actors, the biggest franchise of awards season. But other actors didn't want to pair with him because they didn't want to talk about Donald Trump. About the movie itself, Deadline Hollywood said, in the days that followed the film's release on 1,740 screens, Trump himself took to social media to lash out at what he called a cheap, defamatory and politically disgusting hatchet job. His campaign disputed the sexual assault scene, which was mentioned by the now-deceased Ivana Trump publicly at the time of the couple's divorce, and here's the important part, before she rescinded later in life. It should be repeated, as has often been the case with Trump, that the lawsuit threats against The Apprentice proved all smoke and no fire, but the die was cast, it seems. I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. Another PR executive stated of the lack of partners for Stan for Actors on Actors. The movie, and everyone associated with it, has been on notice from Republicans since Cannes. The executive noted of the legal threats and the long road to finding distribution, since The Apprentice debuted in the South of France Festival in May. Here, let's take a moment to address something important. Trump and his MAGA Republicans haven't actually done anything here. No, this is all Hollywood and the agents that run the town acting entirely on their own accord. They're not so much afraid of Trump himself as they are of the audience being pissed off at Sebastian Stan, which is why the agents are now telling their clients, stay away from that guy, you don't want to catch his cooties. The cooties of starring in a movie that Hollywood cheered on at the time of release, but got real quiet about as soon as the election results were in. Again, this isn't Trump going after Stan. This is the powers that be in Hollywood deciding that the audience might not be too fond of him right now, which is why everyone wants to keep him at a distance. Good thing for him, he already has a few more Marvel movies in the can. Otherwise, there's a very real chance his highly praised role as Trump the Sexual Predator might have ended his career. Because that's where Hollywood is right now. They may blame Trump, but they know that they are on the outs with the audience, and they need to get back into the audience's good graces. Problem is, a town that was so deranged that they thought they were speaking for the majority up until just a couple of weeks ago might not even know how to do that. So it will be very interesting to see how this is going to play out. I, for one, have no doubt that in their plight to win back the audience, mistakes will be made. We will of course keep you up to date with that as things develop. For now, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. And before you go, join me in showing that the Midnight's Edge community can make a real difference, and donate to the charities that matter to you with Bono. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen right now and use my code MIDNIGHT to receive $5 towards your first donation with Bono. Though that is for the first 50 people only, so sign up now.